Hi, good afternoon.
Janina, should we get started?
I feel so, yes.
So, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining. We are really happy to see you. We are really happy to talk to you about AI beyond the hype, some of the opportunities and limitations of generative AI in scientific publishing. We think that beyond the hype and hesitation, there's a space for responsible innovation, and that's where we want to take you today. My name is Stephanie Preuß. I'm a former neuroscientist by training, and I always found technology fascinating. I think it's a great time. It's so interesting to see how AI is really changing, how science is communicated and science is published. I started back in 2019, so far beyond ChatGPT, to publish the first machine-generated book here at Springer Nature, and also started introducing, together with Janina, the auto translations in the book portfolio. And ever since, we are looking into responsible solutions for supporting scientists to read and understand and communicate their findings, always with the human-machine handshake in mind, so the close collaboration between AI and humans.
Also, again, hi and a warm welcome from my side. I'm Janina, and I can just echo what Steffi said. In all projects we initiate and develop, we really focus on the human-machine handshake because we feel here's where the magic is and where the magic is happening when both human and machines work together. And that is what we follow in all of our developments and initiatives we kick off. So we have a strong emphasis on user friendliness, transparency, secure, and a very human-centric design. And we are very much looking forward to show you our vision and also show you some of our projects and initiatives, and very much looking forward to an engaging session.
So, why are we discussing AI? Why are we discussing this now? The world's facing urgent challenges. We have climate change, we have social injustice, we have an energy crisis, and those challenges need fast discovery and good research communication. And generative AI can really help with that. It can transform how research is read, how research is written, but also how research is discovered. And it is also a whole new area for publishers. So today we'll guide you through the new realities of discover, read, and write, and we want to show you concrete examples of what Springer Nature is doing in that space. So give us a minute to introduce Springer Nature as a company. We are one of the largest scientific publishers. We handle over 2.3 million submissions per year, publish over 480,000 articles. Approximately half of them is open access, and really proud of that. But our most important asset is really the people behind the scenes, the editors, the reviewers, and the authors. We think that about 30% of our people are in a tech role. So we not only see ourselves as a traditional publisher, but really as an innovative partner for science and research. Let's dive into the topic. What's the reality? Researchers are already using AI. So that has been a great survey conducted by Wiley with about 5,000 people. And it shows that AI is part of the academic life, like of almost every step and almost everything that a researcher does nowadays. So it supports plagiarism checks. People use it for writing. They use it for data analysis. And we also see this like in workshops, for example. We asked social scientists if they already use AI for coding, and we were really surprised to see that half of the hands were raised. So people use it to produce code to analyze data and transform that into figures. And it's not a niche anymore. It's not only computer scientists. It goes through all the disciplines, including the social sciences. And what we see is on the right-hand side, you see logos of some of the tools out there. Some are very generic, like ChatGPT, for example. But there's also a huge variety of research-specific tools out there that are tailored towards researchers' needs. And the landscape is evolving quickly, and so many new tools popping up every day. But there are open questions, like on the reliability and on the future of publishing. So this is where, as a publisher, we think we need to support, we need to help to shape the transition and guide people in that fast developing landscape. So AI is already changing how we interact with scientific content, how people find, how people read, and how people create content increasingly. That brings a great opportunity, but it also brings the question, as a publisher, are we still gatekeeper? Are we just a platform? Can we be something more? And we want to break it down into the different use cases. So search and discover, read and understand, and then generate content. We want to guide you through this journey. And at each stage, see what is the disruption, what's the technological change within the, let's say, last year or 2 years. What is the challenge that that brings and the opportunity, and how are we as a publisher responding? So let's start with search and discovery. There are multiple AI tools out there. A lot of them can do search, but in the beginning of the year, something really changed when the agents came out, or more agents become available. So we have Gemini, for example, DeepSeek, OpenAI's Deep Research, and many other more. And they really synthesize vast amount of content and deliver like a direct answer without the user visiting another platform. So this completely changes research discovery. That adds a challenge to add value beyond access. So why is this challenging? Some of the paywalled content that's behind the paywall is invisible to those agents. So they will not highlight it, they will not show it. And that, of course, could mean that there is less citations, that there is less research built on that research. The open access content is visible to agents, but often it's consumed within the agent environment. So people don't really come to the publisher's website anymore. And that is a risk of losing traffic, using content, context, brand engagement, and all of that. And for us, it's really a wake-up call. Like, how can we create value so that content is not just used, but it's recognized and it's trusted? How can we still continue to add value in this new era? The agents development is super quick and super impressive, and it's getting quicker and quicker. I don't know if all of you have used AI agents for search and discovery in that context already. So I wanted to take a minute or two to guide you through a kind of standardized task that we have tried to repeat with DeepSeek. So the task is basically not only to answer a specific question, but also to see which paper the information comes from. So to identify one particular study that has been published in 2012 in Scientific Reports, which is one of our journals. So if you do that and you ask your question, the AI will scan through the research papers, through the literature, and DeepSeek was here scanning over like 40 results. It's taking some seconds of time. And after 14 seconds, what it delivered is a plausible sounding answer. And it also provided an article. It is in Scientific Reports. And if you ask the scientist who's actually helping us shape the question, you find out it's not the exact article that they were looking for. So it's really close. It's from 2012. It's in Scientific Reports, but it's not what the person was looking for. It's the wrong article. And for many use cases, this might be okay, but for science, of course, that's not acceptable. Like, we need to be precise, it needs to be accurate, it needs to be the exact paper that somebody was looking for. And this is where, as a publisher, we see our strengths. Like, we can provide trusted resources, we can provide integrity, and that's how we can add value beyond what, for example, those research agents are supporting. And with that, we come to our first point of interaction. So we want to make this masterclass a little bit interactive. We want to hear from you. So this is not a one-way street. And we want to hear, have you already used AI tools to support your literature search or your research discovery? I hope you all see now a small pop-up coming up, and you can select one of the responses, and we're really interested to see. I already started building, so it looks like it's working, but still changing. We will give people a few seconds to respond, a few more seconds to respond, and then share the results with all of you. So still some responses coming in.
And please be honest. We won't tell any.
It's anonymous, so you can you can share whatever your response is. All right, let's take a look. I think it's slowly settling. So I think most of you opted for occasionally, and some of you even for yes, regularly. And I see that only 5% say like no, never, and I don't intend to. So there, or if you take all the no's together, it's like 25%. So we see what I mentioned in the beginning, what we also saw in the survey for researchers, that this is not something that's like for nerds anymore, that really very much has made its way into people's daily lives. So I think that's really interesting. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah, thank you so much. That is super interesting. We have more interactive polls later on, so thank you so much for participating in them. As Steffi already mentioned, there are, of course, benefits to authors using AI at multiple stages, like, for example, search and discover. Also during writing and research, that is what we come to later. But it's also not only of benefit for our authors, but also for our readers, because our content can become more accessible via our human machine handshake products. Accessibility is key to our heart, and we are very happy to have our products here to support accessibility. For example, auto-translations. Our auto-translation services help authors who are not native speakers in the language they are publishing in, and we also can publish in other languages to make content more accessible internationally. We have plain language summaries to make, for example, open access articles more accessible for a broader audience. We want to have a synopsis to make research digestible, for example, for medical doctors in their busy workday. Because in Springer Nature, we aim for content that is discoverable, machine readable, and trustworthy. For example, we also have our Springer Nature research roundups. I'll come to that in a second. We have plain language summaries. We have social posts. They are AI assisted, but this is the key message, always human checked. Whatever we do with our AI products and AI services, there is a large human involvement. We always have it human checked. And because we also have a very human-centric approach, we make it a human-machine handshake. The machine or the AI is there to help the human, not the other way around. Whenever we use AI, we label it, because transparency is our number one principle when working with AI here in Springer Nature. So we mark it clearly when we have used AI. And also librarians can use and recommend our trusted formats. It's well established by now, but it's not very theoretical what I have just said. I will now dive deeper into one of our products, this one here, our so-called machine-generated books. Machine-generated, to be very honest, is kind of misleading, because machine-generated is only a smart part of the process. Machine-generated books are basically a literature overview of books, which are common standard in practice in publishing, because you publish an overview about current literature on a given topic. What we see here, that the editors of this book, you see the names under the chapter heading, have written a chapter introduction standard explaining what is happening in this chapter, connecting the dots, putting everything into context. Then, followed by this chapter introduction, if you please forward to the next slide, Steffi. Thank you. We have so-called machine-generated summaries. You see a proper disclaimer under the heading 2.1 machine-generated summaries, where it is explained what has just happened here. So these are auto-summaries of already published Springer Nature content on a given topic. So this topic here, the human in combination with a machine has identified the perfect fitting literature we have already published in that field, and having it all put into a nice table of content, into a nice order. And then the other machine part is the auto summary. So the machine does the auto summarization, but again, This is all fact-checked and proofread and language checked by the author. So the author is connecting the dots. The author is presenting his or her own view in the introduction. The machine has helped to find the perfect fitting Springer Nature publications on that given topic and has done the auto summary. But bringing it all into a nice order and doing the fact checking has been done by the author. And we clearly mark who has done what, as you can see by the headings. So the whole machine-generated book idea was there to help readers finding the perfect material. Because not only how you search for content, what we have just covered, also the reading is evolving. But if you look at the scientific article you just see here in front of you, the look has not really changed much. But the reading behavior has changed drastically. And that can be supported by AI. AI tools now deliver instant summaries, translations, contextual explanations, and readers increasingly expect also curated, tailored, and instantly comprehensible content because they know AI can do it. But also not all readers are the same. That is what our research also always shows. Some researchers want access to methods. Doctors need clinical relevance. Decision makers need easily understandable language to make their decisions. So you see, the standard PDF format comes to its limits here. But the AI-supported formats I have just shown are just a first step into the direction. Our goal in the future is to have a future-proof core format, which is the scientific article itself. To achieve this, we must rethink the reading behaviors and further evolve our formats to meet the reader's scientific needs in their individual situations. And that brings us to the very next slide. When it comes to the scientific reading and understanding, what do you find most helpful when reading scientific content? And by that, we also mean to understand the scientific content. So what helps you? Do you want to read the full article or do you only read the highlights? Do you read the summaries or do you also prefer having the text being visible in graphs and visualizations and be supported by that?
And if you're not reading scientific content daily, you can also think about adjacent things that you're reading, like news or other things.
Let's see. I'm curious.
Some trends are already building that we
okay.
know.
The summaries and highlights, visualizations and graphs, full text articles still in PDF. That is super interesting, but it's clear that the biggest help are the summaries and the highlights. But super interesting to see still full text article in PDF is by popular demand.
Yeah, and I think that's also part of what you have described, right? You're not planning to get rid of the PDF, but add some extra.
Exactly. That is what I wanted to say next, because of course, we must rethink the whole article, but it doesn't mean we want to replace it, not at all, but we want to rethink it. So please don't get me wrong if I was a bit negative in the slide before. This is just due to the changed reading behavior, but we really stick to the key format, but we must rethink it. And that's why we want to redesign the scientific article. We want it to be dynamic, interactive, and a future-proof format. A format that doesn't just inform, but that connects, clarifies, and facilitates collaboration. And with that, we enter the door to open science. I hope everyone is aware of the open science principle. We fully support Springer Nature making content accessible as much as it can, and being interactive and reproducible, etc., etc. Because ideally, we want to have a scientific article which has data embedded in the article, so it allows easily to reproduce the analysis, and that the data is not detached from the article in a separate repository, but that it's part of the article itself. For example, we also noticed that there's a trend, for example, about publications about coding, that you just do not talk about the codes and how you build it, but you also give access to the code so that people can reproduce it and be interactive with it. So this is our vision, an article that goes beyond just being in PDF, a format that adapts to prior knowledge, the reading context, and the audience. So if you need information quickly, you will be able to get a summary. If you wanted to dive deeper into the topic, you will see the data, the code, and the context. If you seek for more understanding, you can ask questions or even get more explanations. And AI-powered systems make that possible. But crucially, we combine them with human quality assurance. As I said, whatever we do with AI, it is human checked. AI can do a lot, I guess we all know that by now, but it's not always reliable. So our greatest advantage as publisher is, of course, our editorial teams, and we have access to the real experts, our authors. And we largely precise this advantage. So we do not want to create formats which look cool or fancy and just make fun to work with, but also content and formats which are reliable, transparent, and scientifically robust. Because this is another key message we want to foster here in Springer Nature, to have trust in science, and that is key to that. So in our initial prototypes, we're exploring an entirely new ways of experiencing content, also through gestures, voice, and 3D visualizations. Yet our goals, of course, remain unchanged: trusted science communication, just reimagined. That brings me to the next slide. Thank you, Steffi. So if we think that consistently through, we have to ask ourselves also a simple question: will we even need a fully formatted narrative in the future? After all, turning results into a publisher format often takes enormous amount of time by the authors. Many researchers are brilliant scientists, but necessarily not strong writers. And anyone publishing a language other than their own also has another hurdle to take. As a publisher, we are experts in publishing. So how can we give researchers more time of what they actually love to do, which is doing research? We wonder, can we even take more of their task, which they need to do in order to publish? Because AI can help turn data and methods directly into structured output. Still transparent, traceable, and with the author always in full control. The authors always have the final say, and we ensure that the end result is complete and quality checked. I would like to read out the quote by our Content Innovation Vice President, who says, "I envision a future where researchers in many cases will only need to submit their research results, which will then be used to auto-generate articles for varied knowledge levels and different audiences. This allows researchers to publish faster and focus on their research."
And with that, thank you, Janina. We will look into writing. So we need to go back again to advanced reasoning and to smart agents. We have seen the article format is changing, but the way the content is created itself is evolving too. So many tools so far have been supported reading, but there's now a new phase where AI agents really also become reasoning and help to write independently. We take a quick look at a definition. So this is an attempt for a definition. What is an agent? An agent is a kind of an autonomous system. It needs to operate independently. So it gets the tasks, but it decides which tools to use, when to use them, and how to use them to achieve and accomplish certain tasks. And this is actually, those AI agents are what's also now transforming writing. So let me take you through an extreme example. There's been a lot of attention in the research community to Roy Kishoni's team, showing how multiple AI agents can interact and create an entire scientific publication. So the agent was selecting the research topic, was doing the analysis. There was an agent for interpreting the results. They write a paper, then they reviewed the paper, and they incorporated the feedback. So the whole thing from beginning to the end without any human input. The human input was very provocative, saying we're going to have lunch now and leaving it alone. And of course, that's an extreme, on the extreme end of the spectrum, right? And there has been huge debates about the strength of the research hypothesis and if this is really a leap forward or it's just too incremental. But I think that's not the point. The point is we can see where this is heading. We can see how fast things are changing. And although this might not be something that is that we want to achieve, we at least see what's possible. And that raises the question, what this all means also for quality and integrity and our role as a publisher protecting that research integrity. So before we start into writing, we would like to know again from you, would you support a publishing model where researchers submit data, protocols, probably hypotheses, and the AI helps generate the article or the chapter? And for this one, I'm really curious because this is something we haven't pulled before. So a lot of the other things, you know, we see how general attitudes towards reading behavior, for example, change. We do those quite a lot. But for writing, that's a kind of a newer field, at least, I think. So we see responses coming in. Probably can share back. It is for a lot of the people the maybe, which is not surprising. And I actually think also where we sometimes stand, maybe if the quality is ensured. I think that's the crucial point. For us, it's a yes if the quality is ensured, not a maybe. But yeah, it's interesting. But there is still also hesitation. So we can't deny that like 26% say no, it undermines authorship and it's not something that we would want. So I think it's very controversial. It's one of those topics where there is no clear picture of what people would prefer. And then of course, like I need to learn more is always, I think is always a good answer. We all never stop learning, I guess. So yeah. So let's take it forward. What does this mean for research integrity? So whether it is an agent system or it is a simple chatbot like ChatGPT, AI can generate content and it can do it remarkably well today. But of course, it doesn't do the fact check. It doesn't see if it's correct. So it can invent references. It can include hallucinations. And there always are like accidental errors where people don't make sure that things are correct and errors sneak in. And there has been human errors ever before and there will ever be. But what has changed now is how easy it become to produce a real fake submission, like a paper that's not based on scientific facts. It's not about in the introduction citing a wrong paper. It's about made up publications that really look good, but are no real research results. And our traditional safeguards like peer review are under pressure. There's more content, there's less time, there's higher expectations. And for us as a publisher, the key question is like, how can we ensure the research integrity? With the speed and the volume increase, if we use AI, we also must develop like scalable quality control mechanism, not just for the highlight papers, a handful, but something that scales across publications and secures research integrity. And as speed and volume have increased, our quality control mechanisms have also scaled up. So we have invested in that. We recognized early on that this is a need, that we need to make sure that we support human oversight, because manual oversight alone is not scalable enough to keep up with this volume. That's the focus of our efforts. So for an example, we had one mechanism, one check where we found over 7,400 potential fake articles from a single source. And we stopped that with just one single automated check. We check things like image manipulation, plagiarism, nonsense text, incorrect subject assignment, and so on. We also support peer reviewers, because those also get more time pressure and more requests for reviewing. With automations, for example, we try to suggest good reviews, find a good match between the article and the review, so that people don't get many requests that are not a good fit. We do completeness checks, for example, that you can automate. We use structured templates. And in general, our approach is to automate where it provides relief, and to keep the human review where it is really critical. So we also shared Geppetto, one of our tools, with the STM Integrity Hub, so as an industry-wide contribution. So our goal is not only for us as a company to manage our input in integrity, but really contribute to the scientific community and help also smaller publishers to keep up with the challenges that arise because of AI.
And I'm happy to introduce now one of our AI-assisted writing tools. So I hoped 20% who said they're hesitant, or 15%, I can convince you that we do quite a lot of quality control. And this is, again, just a support to the authors while writing. We have developed the AI Book Designer. I'm happy to introduce this tool now to you. This idea is based on the vision that every book, and this is now book focused, is basically a design process. When you come up with your idea, you have to design how you want it to look like. You must give it a name. How long should it be? How many chapters should it be? What should it be all covered? Etc., etc. And each and every step along the book production process could have been also translated into prompts. And this is what we have done. We have translated every step an author needs to do into a single stage at the AI Book Designer. And it all starts with designing the book. And I brought you some screenshots. So this is the first step in the AI Book Designer. You want to first design your book. Now let's click on Design the Book. There we go. First of all, we ask you all the questions you always must answer when you want to initiate a book project with us. So you give us the information about your topic, what could be a working title. Maybe you already have like an idea what should it be said on the back cover copy text. What should be a number of chapters? So what do you have in mind? What could be USPs? And so on. And then we take all of this information and then we suggest a table of content to you. Every stage which is now followed can always be edited and enriched and manually adjusted by the author, by the user. So imagine now we have generated a table of content. We must now shape the chapters. How do we shape the chapters? We need to give the tool keywords and bullet points. So the first step is we create keywords. And if the authors would like to, we could give them some keywords in the first step. We can ask the tool to generate some keywords based on the information we have put in first to design the book, and while the TOC generation, table of content generation, and then the author here in the field can always manually adjust. We do that for every section. So it's super, super detailed. So we do that for the foreword. The author can also just type in his foreword text as he like. And then we do that for the author page, the introduction, etc., etc. We do that really here as an example on a very detailed level. So for example, if an author said, I want to have 5 chapters and every chapter should have at least 5 or 6 subchapters. So we must follow this keyword approach for every section. The abstract part, the first section, then here 3.2, 3.3, 3.4, etc., etc. So you as the author must deliver keywords for every section, but not only keywords, also bullet points. Here we now have an overview of the bullet points, which is clearly giving, the author is giving introductions to the tool, what should be mentioned at every section. So first keywords, then the bullet points. And then as a next step, which is not here, you enrich the tool with references on which basis the tool should generate the content. And here you as the author have two options. You can either use the AI book designer as a language tool, and that is you give the tool references you have by hand, you can upload all of your material, and then based on that we generate the content, or you use it as knowledge tool. So we take the information then out of our own content only, Springer Nature material, and open access content. And again, here, the authors must give the clear instruction what should be mentioned, what should be done. And here in the bullet points, you see some clear instructions. It's giving the information, where should the information coming from? And then if we generate the content either as a language tool, what the author gives us by hand, or based on our own content. And in the end, you have a final draft. In this sense here, it is a Word file. And then the author can enrich it again with their own words. If they haven't done it here, they can add graphs, images, etc., etc. This is to speed up the writing process. So to share some numbers, standard book manuscript creation time, and by that I mean now writing, the author writing, the average is 1.5 years that the author says, I want to do the book project, and then really submits it to us. It's 1.5 years. With the AI book designer, we have published 3 books by now. Here we had a content generation time of 3 or 4 months. So we could really help the author speeding up writing, and they delivered all of the information they already had in their mind, in their idea, and they had by hand, and the AI book designer was helping to read. And then, after the manuscript has been submitted, it follows on our standard processes in editorial. So all of the checks Steffi has already introduced are done. All of the editorial steps are done. The peer reviewing is done. So everything follows the standard process. But we have used the AI book designer to speed up the writing, fully make transparent what we have used here. So the technology is described in the foreword, and we made the authors super happy because nowadays they struggle with writing. That especially what the professors at universities report. They have a lack of doing research, lack of time for doing research, and lack of time for writing on top. So when I'm introducing the AI book designer to professors and practitioners who work heavily and a lot, of course, they always see how they can at least have a writing support. Just to share a bit what we do in our laboratory, happy to introduce the AI book designer. And now our last question about the future of publishing. Would you support a publishing model where researchers submit data and AI helps generate the article chapter? So again, have I convinced some more of you by, for example, introducing the AI book designer? Again, also the content, the basis of the content and how it is created is also with the author. So either they deliver something which is used to generate, or we use our already published material, which is of course quality checked and everything. So now I'm curious. Oh, wow. We have people saying it's efficient. I could say quality, you're still with me when it comes to the quality is ensured, but we have it all undermines authorship. That is now interesting. I hope we can also bring that to the Q&A part.
I see the new results. I see the same. I think I see the same, Paul.
You don't feel you see the same poll?
I feel I see the same poll. I still have the 26%, let's say, undermine authorship. I think that's what we had last round. So probably we need to keep that one for.
Oh yeah, it says here in the chat, the poll didn't work.
All right, we keep that one for later. We keep that one for later. We probably do it at the end, because I would like to know, of course, if attitudes have changed.
That is good, because I was now surprised that it was similar numbers, like on.
It was exactly the same. Your presentation didn't do anything. No, yeah. Let's continue, and then probably we take it during the Q&A at some point, and get back to that. So with that, we would just want to close this presentation by claiming that we're not standing at an edge of a transformation. We're right in the middle of it. So we've also seen it in your polls. We see it in surveys. AI is here. AI is already changing things. It is changing the way research is conducted, communicated, evaluated, and that means our role as a publisher, the role of libraries and other organizations and industries is fundamentally changing. We think our responsibility is really clear. We must not just accompany the change and watch it from the sideline. We want to actively shape it with good judgment, with clear values, and with a deep understanding of what the research community really needs. So we think that has three strategic principles that guide us. One thing is to constantly rethink the business models. There's open access, AI-driven services, different licensing models, and we need to remain flexible while creating new sources of value. For example, as you have seen, our different AI-supported formats. We need to choose the right partners. That's sometimes really tricky. We need to decide, is it building something in-house? Is it joining an open ecosystem? Should we form an alliance with one of the big tech players? We need to be smart about that, have very controlled decisions, and always with the focus on quality and integrity. And we want to lead the way. We want not just technically, but also with our values, with our brands. We stand for trust and transparency and responsibility. And we think that this is one of our greatest competitive advantages in the age of generative AI. So thank you for your attention. Springer Nature's mission is clear. We want to accelerate discovery. We want to foster equal opportunities, and we want to ensure research integrity. And for that, we use technology as a tool, not as a replacement for trust or for responsibility. And now we're looking forward to getting your questions, your thoughts. Feel free to use the chat, and we're happy to take some. So Janina, if you already had time to scan the chat.
I do.
Open it.
There are some questions in the Q&A and in the chat, and I would like to start with the Q&A tool. And the first question I would have for you, Steffi, is from Jay. I hope I pronounce your name correctly, because I see we have an international audience, which is amazing. The first question is, do you think AI will help or hinder the movement for more open access research?
I think it will help. That's probably my role and a part of being optimistic. I think not necessarily open access in terms of publishing models, so paywall versus open access. That might help too, because I mean, if you publish open access, you always had more visibility. But now with AI tools picking up those open access articles, I think there's even stronger need for publishing open access. But also I think, and that's even more important probably to me, is having those real open formats. So this vision that we have, that there is the data and then the code and the figure, and the code basically links the data to the figure, so it can be really reproduced by anyone. And there's probably the protocol behind the article. So what we see is sometimes, for example, method section needs to be super short. So people have all their protocols and then they squeeze it into a method section, and then somebody else tries to reproduce it but can't because it's a short version of it. So I think if we kind of have an unfoldable, morphable article format that has all the detailed information, and not everybody wants to look at it and not everybody needs to look at it, but that, and then also open science in terms of clearer communication in terms of accessibility, that we have, for example, plain language summaries and other things. For a lot of patients, for example, look at medical research. It's open access, but they don't understand it. It's not accessible. So plain language summary can help them make sense of stuff themselves. And I think that's also an important principle of open science. So in that sense, yes, I think AI will be helpful.
I would like to also support what just Steffi said, because we do a lot of internal research with our authors, and I feel the willingness to open up their material to support open science is there. Researchers would like to connect with other research on the globe, and AI helps to connect, to find each other, and to support, to work to, and to engage together to answer the same research question. So based on the research we are currently having, our own authors are very willing to share their material, to share their content, and also so far they see the advantages AI tools have to make their knowledge or their publications more accessible. So just sharing some details from our internal UX that I feel also our authors are very keen, because it also benefits them to then make more out of their own research. Just echoing, but
I have one in the chat for you. One for the AI book designer. So someone asking, typically a book treats some new results, hence there would not be references to use. Is this not an obstacle to use the AI book designer?
Need to think about that. Typical book treats new results. This is actually where we then finger point to the human. That's the human job. Because sometimes there's, for example, for new projects, for example, let's think about a very trendy topic, AI and ethics. AI and ethics, or questions like that, which are just coming up, which are new. There you don't have much publications on it. You can't really have, you don't have a proper base to generate the content on. So you actually have the same situation than you would write a book by yourself. You have defined a niche, and now you have to, of course, always do the literature review and justify your opinion, justify your gap, say what is already out there. So that is basically what you also face when you write it fully manually. And when we have that situation, we point back to the author, because it's then their job to fill that gap. It's their job basically to give us their view, their opinion, what they have found out in their research, to exactly fill that gap. And I feel that is also cool when it comes to our AI tools, when searching for content, and likewise with the AI book designer. It shows the gaps in publication portfolios. So that is a great USP of the book, because then it fills a niche. But I don't see actually it's an obstacle. I feel it's a strength, because it shows where there is not enough knowledge published yet, and why we need the authors to do that.
Thanks. Probably a quick one, because that's also AI book designer. Is the AI book designer an open access tool?
No, it is not. I'm sorry to say. And it's only for our authors. It's not accessible to non-Springer Nature authors. And we can, if the author says, as I described it, you can either use it as a language tool or as a knowledge tool. And if the author using it basically as a knowledge tool, he can fill it up with open access publications, but it's not a proper open access publication tool. And following what I said, that once you have created your manuscript, the AI book designer, it follows standard editorial processes. So that means, oh, sorry, my Mac image background manipulation is on. So what happens then if it comes to you discuss the contract and all of the publication options we have with your in-house editor, you could decide you make it an open access book.
But I think probably the question, I don't know if I understood the question a bit differently. So probably to add, it is free of charge. If you are a Springer Nature book author, it's free of charge. So it's not a subscription service or something. But of course, Janina, you're completely right. You can't just Google it and access it online. It is reserved exclusively for our book authors. Do we have more in the
Q&A? Yes, we would have from Carolina. She is asking, did the adoption of the AI-powered format cause any changes in the published content, updating practices at Springer Nature?
I am not updated practices. So I hope I understand this correctly. So what you have seen, to make that very clear, what you have seen in terms of the article of the future is a vision. So that's not something that is live and we have it. And, you know, next time you want to submit an article, you say, please, morphable article, and we can offer it to you. That's a pity. We would love to do so, but we're working on it hard. I think updating content, so there's like two different perspectives. One is in terms of depth, we want to have different layers, but the point you mentioned about time is also very interesting. So I think what we could also envision in a future format is that it's not so closed, but it's continuously possible to basically add to a story that you started, to an article, to say, okay, it's not like doing all the research and then at one point you put it together and you publish and then you do all the research, but more in a continuous way to say, we have another finding that we would want to add to this overall story. So I'm not sure, Carolina, if I answered your question, but this is what I would say in terms of updating. And then, of course, the other the policies and other things we're continuously updating. Whenever there's new tools and new technology coming out, we have policies and practices that go along and help authors, guide authors on what they can do and what they shouldn't do with these new AI tools.
I would like to take up the next question in the Q&A part, because that is basically, I feel, what I have already answered in the question before. Reading out loud, AI is more useful for mainstream research, but in my experience, it does not work at all for very specialized research on little study topics and areas. What do you plan to do to encourage also less mainstream research with AI? You are fully right. It's hard when there's no much database on which AI can work. So also here, we really finger point back to the authors and to the researchers to do their research. What we then support, for example, with the machine generated overviews, what I was sharing, we kind of support and say, okay, this is what related areas have come up with lately. So we look closely to your niche, what has been published there, to support you and to get inspiration, and you can do a literature analysis and see what's going on. And also, what is always a great help, to then add an interdisciplinary approach. So our authors are always very appreciating when we kind of say, okay, you have this research question, you currently look at from this angle, why don't you also add a perspective from another angle, and then you basically combine, and then you maybe have also more data you can look at. So looking at it from an interdisciplinary approach is then sometimes a solution, or also really look closely on related topics, and then we try to deliver some summaries on that. But again, this is where we need the human. So if anyone is cautious or afraid we replace, I'm just happy to say that all of the time and all over again, it's supporting the author, not replacing it. And I hope that answered your question. Here,
I will pick a tricky one, okay? To spice it up. Somebody says, why would I take the time to read a book when the author won't take the time to write it? And I think that's a really interesting conversation that I lately had on LinkedIn, because I think it is really strange how we use AI, like we do bullet points and then we use AI to write things and then we publish them or send them to people, and then other people use AI to summarize them back again into bullet points. And I think the question here is the one that Janina has raised, like, do we really need the full narrative? Could there be a future where we accept that an article, for example, like the introduction, is not full prose, that it's not a full narrative, that it's not beautiful language, that it's just covering, of course, the information. We need the information, we need the data, the hypothesis, the results, the protocols, but introduction and like, do we need the whole writing, or can it be a bullet point format? And we as a publisher just say, yes, we publish this. As an author, you save time, and you don't even need AI to make it into a narrative, and yet a person doesn't need AI to summarize it. So that could be basically a shortcut. I think we're not there. I think people still would struggle to see this as an acceptable format, but we are exploring if we can have shorter formats. And that's true for books as well. Like the research roundups, for example, they can have bullet point kind of summaries in them. And we think that's fine if they convey the main point and the messaging is correct. Nobody needs to take the time to write it, and nobody needs to take the time to read it in full.
And I would like to back that up with that still the author delivers the crucial content. So all of the research and all of the hard work is done by the author. Just putting it all into a nice manuscript. This is where sometimes authors need help. As I said, some are great scientists, but some are not the best writers. And we feel sometimes they are hesitant to write because, as I said, it takes 1.5 years on average to write a book. Why not helping them to make their knowledge and their bullet points into a fully nice looking book? Because otherwise they wouldn't do it. The knowledge would be lost. They would keep it on their desk. So making the authors to be willing to write and to also not only publish papers, which are quicker to write, but also to publish a book. We notice in our customers, readers, there's a lack of time. They say they have a lack of time for reading what they need to read to keep up to date with their research, but there's also a lack of time when it comes then to write what they have done in the lab, because there is hardly any more time in the lab. So again, this is just a support. The main and biggest task, all of the brain work and the heavy research, is done by them. We just want them to bring it to paper. And that is another, it's just a support to bring it to paper.
I think we have time for probably one more, and then we need to close it, and also encourage you to give us some feedback at the end. Janina, we want to pick one more, or should I pick one? I can, if you want, I can pick one. So there is one interesting one that I know can't find it, but it basically says that writing is part of the research process and of the thinking process. And if we think that researchers may get less informed than before when using writing assistants and unlearn the ability of summarizing and deeply understanding research topics. And there has been an interesting study coming out a few weeks ago, a few days ago. Probably that person has seen on how the use of ChatGPT can change how your brain works and which areas are activated. And I think that's very fascinating. And we can't really foresee how using AI tools will change in the future. I think there's a similar thing with maps and navigation systems. If you have a navigation system, you're used to it, you're probably less familiar and used to navigating with a physical map. And that's a skill that to be lost. I think also writing skills, probably, if people lose a lot of assistance for writing and polishing language, probably the writing skills will at some point vanish or become less important. But I think the important part in all of our solutions, and that was the way we build things and what we encourage, is that the thinking and the creative part is with the researcher. So we're just trying to take away the boring stuff that doesn't really need a lot of brain power, like polishing something from a bullet point into a full-blown sentence. We don't want to take away the thinking, the reasoning, the hypothesis, the research itself, coming up with those bullet points, thinking about a message that you want to convey, for example. And similarly with reading, a lot of the formats that we have help you to kind of triage literature and say, I want to read this. This is interesting. I don't need this. For some articles, you will need this deep dive. You need to, like, you breathe them. You need to almost learn them by heart. For others, it's completely sufficient to say, I've seen this, I've seen the results, it's fine with me, it's not exactly what I'm looking for, whatever. So we just think we can speed up the process, but the kind of intense interaction, future formats could make it even more intense. They could make the articles even deeper. And for those where there's really value, it could mean that you can dive deeper and you can really follow along the research closer. Writing skills probably lose some of their quick reading skills, but hopefully not the deep reasoning and the things that really are research at the heart.
That was spot on.
So we probably make that the last one. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining. It has been a pleasure to be here with you today. We have a small poll for feedback, so please take a few seconds to fill that before you leave. And other than that, all the best.
Thank you so much.